All right, let's jump in. So around 600 AD, going way back, where is what is now England, there was a bunch of kingdoms fighting over that territory, little island. One of them was called Northumberland, located in northern England. They had a king named Ethelfrith. So if you're pregnant, there's an idea. You're the only kid in kindergarten named Ethelfrith. He was a really important character in the history of England. One historian said that English history starts with Ethelfrith. So he was that big of a deal. He helped consolidate power, and what is England now kind of started with him. It's a formidable leader, very shrewd battle tactician, hardly ever showed up to a battle he didn't win. Now, keep in mind, Ethelfrith was a pagan. Did not believe in God, did not believe in Jesus, was not anything close to being a Christian. Christianity hadn't quite made its way up to the top of England yet. Now, it was in England. The other kingdoms that he was fighting, some of them were Christian. So he ends up facing off against one of them, the Britons, in the Battle of Chester. So what I want to imagine is like, a medieval army kind of setting up, something like Braveheart, something like if you ever watched a Viking show, that level of technology. So Ethelfrith shows up with his army. You got guys with swords, guys with spears, guys with axes, some bows and arrows maybe, some cavalry. And he's getting his troops into position, doing what a good king would do, ordering his generals, making sure, kind of surveying things. And then the opposing army shows up. So he's kind of surveying that, where they're setting up their archers, how far is that? We've got the cavalry's over here, the sword here, and he's kind of looking at, and then he notices there's a group of guys over here that look a little different. So they're sending some scouts trying to figure out what this is, and it turns out that it's a group of unarmed men. No swords, no bows and arrows, no axes, no spears, nothing. And he's like, what is this? So they're doing scouting thing, trying to figure out what this is. So some scouts come back. He asks his generals what's going on there. And his generals report, those are a group of monks who have come to pray for the enemy army. And it was a couple of thousand. It was a lot of monks who had come, completely unarmed. The only thing they have is prayer. And let's just acknowledge, that's a crazy thing to show up to a battlefield and be like, I'm here. Like, what are you going to do? Pray. That's crazy. So there they are. And when Ethelfrith hears this pagan king turns to his generals and says, when the battle starts, kill them first. Ooh, that's cold-blooded there, isn't it? Now, I also want to point out, I'm no battle tactician. I have no idea about how military strategy works. But just on the surface, I feel like that's a bad move. Like, you're going to waste energy attacking guys who aren't going to attack you back. You're going to move your army in this direction, and now their army can attack you. Why not kill the guys with swords and bows and arrows first, and then, they'll still be there. This seems like a bad strategy. Unless you believe that prayer does something. So here's the sad part about that story. One, he did just that. They attacked the monks. History says a couple of thousand monks died that day. And he won the battle. So it worked. That's the first sad thing. The second sad thing is that it seems like a pagan king who does not believe in our God, does not believe in Jesus, doesn't have faith, seems to believe in the power that comes through prayer, maybe more than we do. Because think about it, he ordered his generals around this idea. He literally made decisions based off what prayer could do. He adjusted his whole strategy around what prayer could do. That's wild. So we're in a series on prayer right now. And I've been studying, listening to things, reading things, watching things. And as I've been doing all that, this one question keeps popping up over and over and over again. And every time I hear it, it just kind of haunts me a little bit. So I thought I'd share it with you so it could haunt you a little bit. Here's the question. If God gave you everything you've prayed for in the last week, what would happen? If God gave you everything that you prayed for just in the last 7 days, what would the world look like? What would your world look like? So here's how that hits me. Immediately, the moment I hear that, guilt. Immediate guilt. That's why you're at church, right? To feel guilty. Just sharing with you. So I feel guilty at first. And then I do this thing where, like, as I feel guilty, I'm like, oh, well, the week's not over yet, so I better pray right now. I almost feel like this desperate need to pray right now. And it's for the big stuff, like, Lord, pray for world peace, pray for world hunger, pray that the Browns win the Super Bowl, like all the big things, trying to get them in there. And then as I'm, so I start with guilt, I immediately kind of do a quick prayer, and then I ask myself, why? Why don't I pray in such a way that question doesn't bother me? Why does it seem like a pagan king who doesn't believe in God, doesn't believe in Jesus, seems to believe in the power that comes through prayer more than I do? So what I want to do, I kind of want to share my thought process with you. I wanted to figure this out. Okay, Adam, why do you struggle like this? Well, I've got a couple of things. So there's 2 verses that throw me off when it comes to prayer. I just want to be real with you. They throw me off. First one's in Matthew 6, verse 8. This is Jesus speaking. Jesus says, your Father, God, knows exactly what you need before you ask him. God already knows. So before you open up your mouth to pray or start to pray in your mind, God already knows what you're going to say. He already knows what you need. He already knows. And that messes me up. And here's why it messes me up. Hey, guys, have you ever been driving down the road and your wife's sitting in the passenger seat? This is a dangerous illustration. My wife's not in here, though, so I'm safe. So you're driving, and there's a car in front of you that's like 100-yard, like a full football field out there, and they hit their brakes, and she goes, brakes. Oh, no, you all want to be safe. You're all, she's never done that to me. Okay, fine. I'll go first. My wife does that to me, and I'm like, I could stop 7 times. I could take a nap before I hit that car. That's how I feel. And you can call me sensitive if you want, I get annoyed with that. Like, I know, I'm driving. I know. I know already. So that irritates me. So because someone telling me something that I already know irritates me, I think, well, why would I tell God stuff that he already knows? Am I kind of like insulting God's intelligence by praying to him, telling him things when God's up in heaven going, I know. I'm running the universe here, God. I know. Like, I feel like that. So that's the first verse that kind of gets in my head. Here's the second one. It's Psalm 115:3. Our God is in the heavens. He does whatever he pleases. God is in the heavens, does whatever he pleases. The phrase theologians would use to describe this verse is God's sovereignty. He is all powerful. He is over all. He sees all. He can do all. Whatever he wants, whenever he wants. And I have this thought, the moment I read that, my mind goes like, well, if I were God, I wouldn't listen to me. That's what I immediately think. If I were God, I wouldn't listen to anything that I have to say. And that leads me to almost kind of a fatalism, like what's going to happen is what's going to happen. What God's going to do is what God's going to do. And if you put these 2 things together, God already knows what I was going to say before I said it, and God's going to do what God's going to do. Why pray? It snuffs my prayer life out. Now, don't get me wrong, I still have faith. I actually have really big faith. Like, hey, God can do anything. He can do whatever he wants. I believe that. And I even would say that I have a high view of God. You could call it that, right? Because, hey, I trust that God's running the universe. Actually, I trust so much, I'm not even going to pray. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could almost twist it that way. But these 2 verses, when they get in my head, they certainly don't lead to a vibrant prayer life. So, the big question then is, why pray? If God knows what you're going to pray before you even pray it, and if God's going to do what he pleases, why pray? So that's what I want to answer here, and to be able to, and this is kind of my thought, I'm sharing my thought process with you. This is why I struggle with sin, but I want to show you how I've worked through that. So to answer this question, you got to go all the way back to the very, very, very beginning. First book of the Bible, first chapter in the first book of the Bible in Genesis. One of the most important verses kind of setting the stage here is verse 26. God says, let us make human beings in our image to be like us. They will reign over the fish of the sea, the birds in the sky, to the livestock, all the animals, all the wild animals on the earth, and the small animals that scurry along the ground. So this is more important than you may realize, this little verse. Because think about it, God at this point, he's kind of going down the days, right? He's creating light, he's creating the planets, he's creating, water and fish and plants and animals and all this stuff. And then he gets to human beings and he stops and he's like, hold up. Of all the stuff I've created, these ones are different. These ones are different. Humans are unique. And he says that human beings will be made in his image, in his likeness. The image of God, the imago Dei, is on humans in a way that is not on anything else. Nothing else in creation is like us. God didn't create dogs or cats or dolphins or any of them with his image. It's humans, specifically. They're made in his image, his likeness. Something about us. And then did you see that little word, reign? He said, they will reign over the fish of the sea, and he runs the whole thing down. They will reign. So in some way, we're like God, and then he says we're going to reign. It's this Hebrew word, radah. Means to have dominion, to exercise authority over, or to rule like a king or a queen. So he says that humans are in some way like God, and then he gives us this thing, this reign word. You're a little king, you're a little queen. Now God has ultimate authority, right? Because when you read this verse, I don't know about you, when I read it, I expect it to go like this. Let us make human beings in our image to be like us. I will reign over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky. But he doesn't say that. He does. Certainly, he's the high king. But in some way, he's like, yeah, he's over all, but he's giving us something here, some kind of authority here. So if you look at the order of creation, certainly God is at the top and creation is down here, but humans are somewhere in between. Did you follow that? God here, creation here, humans somewhere in here. We're like him and we're meant to rule in some way. Now, here's what I want to argue. I want to argue that God is still creating. He's still creating. No more mountains and oceans and trees and animals. He's done doing that. But God is now creating the future. God is creating the future. Every day is a new creation. The future is yet uncreated. Tomorrow is yet uncreated. And what I would want you to think about is it seems like when God got to this point, he was like, I'm done creating. Now I'm going to have these humans. They're going to be like me. They're going to rule. And it seems like he wants us as his image bearers to participate now in the creation of the future. He wants you to participate in the creation of the future. He didn't come to you when he was making birds or lizards and be like, hey, what do you think? He didn't ask you about that. But he is asking you to help create tomorrow. And that's wild. That's wild. Now think about that, because you go back to Psalm 115:3, the one where it says, our God is in the heavens, he does as he pleases. What this means is, well, what he pleases is that he wants to work through us. He pleases to allow us to participate in the creation of the future. That's his will. His will is to work through us. His will is to allow us to be collaborators, little co-creators of the future. Just that begins to transform the way I think about prayer. Because I'll be honest, when I think about it just cold, prayer seems pointless. If God already knows what I'm going to say and he's already going to do what he's going to do. But if instead God is asking me to participate in the creation of the future and prayer somehow plays a role in that, now that's interesting. So I want to show you some absolutely bonkers Bible verses, in my opinion. These are crazy, especially in light of the first two. So we'll start in James chapter 4, verse 2. This is just one sentence in verse 2, and it says this: you do not have because you do not ask. Ooh. Did you just catch the cause and effect there? He's saying the reason you don't have some things in your life is because you didn't ask for them. That the cause is a lack of prayer, and the not having the thing is the effect. Notice he didn't say, this is what I would expect. So James, that's actually Jesus' little brother that's writing this. What I would expect this verse to say, in light of some of the verses I've already read, is you don't have because it wasn't in God's plan. That's what it seems like it should say. You don't have because God had an idea about the way the world was going to run 1 billion years before he even created it, and what you're asking for wasn't in his plan. That's what I expect him to say. But he doesn't. He says, hey, some stuff in your life you don't have because you didn't ask for it. And what that means is that prayer causes things. Prayer moves things. Prayer causes things to happen that wouldn't have happened if you didn't pray. And the opposite is true as well, and that's the scary part. That there are some things that haven't happened in your life because you haven't prayed for them. There are things left undone in your life because you haven't prayed. That's wild. I mean, think about that. That's the thing when I asked that question, like if God said yes to everything you prayed for in this past week, it's the same kind of feel for me. Wait a minute, you're telling me my life looks different because I haven't prayed for some stuff? Like legit, I could be going without right now for no other reason than God's like, you didn't ask. Just waiting. Wow. That's crazy. Again, that's a transformative way of thinking of prayer, that it actually does something, that God is saying, hey, I move through the prayers of my people. Ooh, that's his way? That's the way he wants to do things? Let me show you another one. Matthew 7:7. This is Jesus speaking. He says, keep on asking, and you will receive what you ask for. Keep on seeking, and you will find. Keep on knocking, and the door will be opened to you. So not only does prayer change things, Jesus here is specifically telling you, hey, be persistent in this. You might not get the thing in the first prayer, but you keep praying, keep seeking, keep knocking, keep at it. There's something to persistence, that God likes persistence. In light of the fact, I'm sorry I keep referencing being a parent. Oh my gosh, if I say the sentence, keep asking to my kids, that's a threat. I don't know about you. I'm like, go ahead. We're going to fight now. Because they know that I don't respond well to continued asking. I actually get very, very annoyed when my kids continue to ask the same question over and over and over again. But here is Jesus saying, hey, God actually wants you to keep asking. Do you think it's possible that some of our hang-ups about prayer actually come from us projecting ourselves onto God, maybe? Have you noticed? For me, this is what I've done. If I were God and I knew everything, I wouldn't listen to me. See me projecting myself onto God? Or if I were God, I wouldn't want you asking more than once, certainly. And here I am projecting my own imperfections onto God, but God isn't like me. Lucky for you. God isn't like me. Now let me show you an even crazier one. This is God speaking in Isaiah 62, 6 and 7. O Jerusalem, I have posted watchmen on your walls. They will pray day and night continually. Take no rest, all you who pray to the Lord. Then listen to this. Give the Lord no rest until he completes his work, until he makes Jerusalem the pride of the earth. What? He's saying, I've posted the watchmen. Their job is to pray day and night continually. He's like, don't give up, don't take no rest. And then he's like, give the Lord no rest. Keep asking. Keep at it. And again, as a parent, I'm like, this is crazy. Is he asking us to pester him, to annoy him, right? Hey, go into the throne room and don't let go of his robe. Just keep tugging on it, even though he's doing something else. I'm like, kick out of the way. My kids do that. But God's like, no, do that. And at first, it kind of doesn't make sense, right? Why would God want us to do that? That's mad. But what if that's not really what he's doing? What if all of this, we kind of have it upside down? What if instead of God asking us to pester him, what if instead really this is God inviting us to participate in that thing that he wants us to participate in, the creation of the future? This almost sounds like God saying, hey, I created this whole thing and I put you guys just a little bit above it. I wanted you to be like me and to rule and reign, and I wanted you to participate with me in the creation of the future of this thing. And he's asking, almost begging us, come on, do it with me. I want you to pray. I want to do this with you. I don't want to just do it on my own. God could do anything in the blink of an eye. He wants to work through us. He wants our prayers to actually matter and change things. He wants us to be collaborators with him in creating a better future. So when he asks us to keep asking, when he asks us for persistence, it's almost like him begging us to be a part of this. I don't like the idea of God begging, but you know what I mean? He's like he's being persistent in asking us to be persistent. He wants to create with us. And that is crazy. That is crazy. If we think about prayer that way, what it becomes then is this invitation into something. It starts to change a little bit in my mind. Because I don't know about you, sometimes prayer feels like a job, doesn't it? It's like if you're a Christian, you're like, I'm supposed to. But if we think about it this way, it's like, whoa, I get to do that? God's letting me in? My prayers are going to, I don't have because I don't ask. That means if I do ask, I could, that my prayers move things? Ooh, that's a whole different way of thinking about it. Now, if you've been in church for a while, there's this phrase that Christians use when they pray that I really wish I would hear less. I'm taking a risk in saying this, but here's the phrase. You ready? I wish Christians would say this less. They pray something and then they tag on at the end of the prayer, if it be your will. I wish I'd hear that less. Now, I know some of you are like, I'm going to hit you with the Bible. Hold on. Let me explain. So I understand why you might say that. In the best sense, you could pray something and then tack on to the end of it, if it be your will. And what you mean is, God, I want to submit to what you want. And that's good. He's God and you're not. Like, yes, definitely you should have a posture of humility approaching God. I agree with that. Elizabeth Elliot, wife of a famous missionary, said that sometimes in prayer, my will has to be undone. And sometimes that's true. That's what happens in prayer. God kind of unravels you a little bit, and that's certainly a part of it. And I also want to acknowledge, especially if you were to sit here and try to defend it, Jesus said that. And you might be like, well, what's wrong with saying something Jesus said? And he did in the Garden of Gethsemane when Jesus was praying the night he was arrested. He's praying, Lord, take this cup from me if it be your will. So Jesus said it. He did. And there's nothing wrong with saying something like that if you're copying Jesus. But can we also acknowledge that actually, when it comes to prayer, that's the only place in the Bible that phrase is used? It's the only time. All the other times in prayer, they pray and they don't say that. It's just the one time that Jesus said that. Now, I know the idea shows up in other places for sure, but not in prayer. And you might, I know I'm pretending to argue with you right now. You're not doing a very good job. It's fine. You might even bring up the Lord's Prayer, right? Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, right? There's a line in there, and that's an important line. That carries weight. But I just want to say, yeah, that line's there, but that seems to be very specifically praying God's will down, and there's a place for that in prayer. You are supposed to pray God's will down, but the second half of the prayer doesn't have that, right? Give us this day our daily bread, if it be your will. No, he didn't say that, did he? There's places where you're allowed to pray your will up. So I wonder if sometimes we tack that little phrase on, if it be your will, to kind of make up for a lack of faith. It's almost like you're hedging your prayer bets. Make you feel a little bit better if God says no, if you say the little, if it be your will at the end, because then you can say, well, it wasn't. I did pray that. And maybe I'm wrong, but I always feel like, forgive me, but when I hear somebody, if we were praying together, and if I hear somebody pray some big thing, they're praying that God would move, do some impossible thing, Lord, we need you in this situation, you're the only one who can do it, and they pray this thing, and they're pontificating all these words to God and explaining all this stuff, and then they get to the end, and if it be your will. And for me, that's like the pinprick in the balloon, the power, the faith, feels like it leaks out of it when you say it that way. I don't want to hedge my bets. It seems like he's inviting us into something. Well, shouldn't we just go in? Shouldn't we just ask him? So check this out. There's a crazy story, absolutely crazy story. I don't have time to read the whole story. I'm not even going to go into any of the details because it begs some questions that I don't have time to answer. But I'll give you a 30,000-foot overview of the story, and then I'm going to read the verse that it ends with. So it's a story about Jesus. Jesus is doing Jesus things, and this woman approaches him. And she asks him for something. And Jesus says no. Now, stop right there. She asked, he said no. If she was praying a, if it be your will prayer, that's the end of the story, isn't it? She asked, he says no, she should walk away. She should. The story would be like one verse. It probably wouldn't even make it to the Bible, right? Who would write that down? Like, one came up, asked Jesus something, he said no. And he kept like, why are we even telling people that? But she doesn't. He says no, and she keeps at it, to the point that the disciples who are with Jesus actually ask Jesus, like, hey, will you send her away? She's annoying. So whatever she's doing, I mean, first of all, jerks. Second of all, think about what that means about this woman. She just won't leave him alone. So they're walking, and she's just, and the disciples are like, Jesus, come on, get rid of her. And here's the crazy part. He essentially does. Hey, we're not doing that. He says no again. And at that point, if you read the story, I think he explicitly, in a way, says no like 3 separate times. They go a little back and forth. No, no, no. How do you not walk away at that point? How do you not drop your head and go, I guess that's not happening? But not this woman. She gets to this point. I mean, all the disciples are grumbling at her. Jesus has said no, no, no. And at this point, she drops to the ground and essentially begs him. Like, Lord, please do this thing. And I think everybody, all the disciples are expecting Jesus to be like, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Something like you do with your kids, like, no. But instead, the most shocking thing ever happens. Matthew 15:28, Jesus turns around to her and says this, dear woman, your faith is great. Your request granted. What? No, let me rephrase it. Future changed. Wasn't going to be, now it is. Whatever you were praying for wasn't going to happen, now it is. What? After all that? He says yes. But more than that, if you dig a little bit into this, so this little phrase, your request is granted, that's kind of called a paraphrase. It's the idea of what she said. But if you tried to translate that sentence word for word, it would be, may it be even as you will. May it be even as you will. And that's important to me. That little word will. In the original language, that word, it's important. Because it's actually the same word used in the Lord's Prayer. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Jesus uses that same cosmic kind of word, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. He uses it in this sentence. It's also the same word that Jesus used in the Garden of Gethsemane. Take this cup from me. He's bleeding, drops of sweat out of him. He's in agony. Lord, take this cup from me if it be your will. And here, he flips it. He turns to this woman and he says, may it be even as you will. Instead of God's will down, she prayed her will up, and Jesus responded to it. And don't come at me, please. I hate the people who tell, if you want to say God's going to do what God's going to do, please don't tell me Jesus was pretending this whole time, right? Is Jesus really no, I'm not going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. Keep asking. No, I'm not going to do it. Oh, okay, I will. No. The way the story is presented, if you just read it at face value, Jesus wasn't going to. She kept at it, and he's like, oh man, your faith, it's actually moved me. I wasn't going to, and your faith moved me to do, now I am going to. Here's the pen that writes the future, write it. And he handed it to her, and she said, give me this. And he said, yes. And it happened. And the future that was going to be ceased, and the future that she wrote came into being. He allowed her to collaborate. He allowed her to be a part of creating the future. That's crazy. I read this book on prayer a couple years ago. It was huge. It was one of those big, thick ones that said prayer on the front. And I could summarize the whole thing. It basically made the argument that prayer doesn't really change God. How could it? He's all-knowing. He's infinite. He's sovereign. It doesn't make any sense that prayer would change God. What prayer does is it actually changes you. That was the whole book. And then, the argument also was, and that's a good thing, so you should pray. And I get it. By the way, I really do think prayer changes you. I think as you pray for things, and maybe that's even part of the persistence as you pray for things over and over, God does start to change your heart about things. And that is a huge benefit. But for me, that's crazy that the way God talks about prayer in the Bible, is it a ruse? Is he really like, hey, pray for stuff. I'm going to do stuff the way I was going to do it anyways, but it's actually going to help you change. But you should definitely pray for stuff. Like, is it a bait and switch? To me, you're missing out on like half of the point here of prayer. God's like, yes, prayer will change you for sure. You should pray God's will down. But he's inviting us to pray our will up. He's inviting us into something that's like, this is like a cosmic level thing to say, hey, pray you. I want you to be a part of creating the future. That somehow, and this is a miracle, that somehow he folds our will into his will. That when it says our God is in the heaven, he does as he pleases, well, what he pleases is to ask you to ask him, and somehow he's gonna work those things together, and he wants to create together. He wants to work through you in his image and his likeness to rule and to reign and to create a future with us. That's crazy. What an invitation. What an invitation. To me, this is one of the top 5 most spectacular things about God. In no particular order, the creation of the universe. I'm a pretty big fan. It's cool. 5 out of 5 stars. I like it. The fact that he stepped into the creation. At Christmas, God come down, Emmanuel, he stepped into the thing, into this mess. He stepped into it. That's up there. The fact that he died, that he allowed himself to be killed, because this is pretty surprising, by the way, for the source of life to be killed. It's kind of like making water not wet. I don't understand all that, like how that happened, but he allowed himself to die. That's incredibly surprising. The reason he allowed himself to die, for our sins in our place, spectacular, obviously in the top 5. And then also the resurrection, the fact that he didn't stay dead. Only guy to ever borrow a tomb, just told death no. Like, that's awesome. I love that. For me, that's number 1. Our great enemy, death, told no. Love it. Number 5, most spectacular thing about God is that prayer moves God. Prayer moves God. That's crazy to me. That an infinite, all-knowing being would stoop down, listen to me, and that it would move him even a millimeter is miraculous. And it's amazing that he wants us to be a part of that, to be collaborators with him to create the future. It's wild. So if God gave you everything you've prayed for in the last week, what would happen? What I was going for here was to make you hungry for prayer. I want to give you FOMO. I want you to feel like you're missing out. Like, what am I doing? I can't believe I'm not praying. Like, God's inviting me into this thing. He's inviting me into like the creation of the future, that somehow prayer changes things, that I might not have things in my life because I haven't prayed for them. Like, I want you to feel all that because I don't want prayer to be like a duty. I don't want to feel like it's this discipline thing. Oh, I got to go pray now. Like, you should be like, oh my gosh, I get to step into the throne of God, and he's actually going to listen to me. Like, he wants me to be a part of this. Like, I want it to feel like an invitation, like a thing you can't wait to do, like a thing that you would feel dumb not doing. That's what I want it to feel like. Now, I know, here's my little asterisk at the very bottom. This is the terms and conditions that you never read. Sometimes he says no. And so the way I was thinking about this, I was actually going to spend a whole bunch of time talking about that today. But I realized as I started to go through this that I wouldn't be able to. So I'm going to talk about that next week, how you respond when God says no. And I feel for that. There has been times where I've prayed something and I was certain it was the thing that was supposed to happen, and he said no, and I was a little baffled by that. And I want to talk about that. And I even know is you might be sitting here listening to this whole thing, and maybe this doesn't even sound great to you. Maybe you're like, screw this is stupid, Pastor. I did pray in it. He said no, and I didn't, and the future didn't change at all. I didn't get the same answer as that woman got. I got no, 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 and another no. And I get it. This is my cliffhanger ending. You have to come back next week so we can talk about that. But right now, I wanna lean into the idea that he's inviting us in. And just admit that maybe it is good sometimes that he says no to us. I'm sure you have some unanswered prayers that you look back and go, man, I'm happy that I didn't marry him. Right? Like there's some prayers that God said no to that you can look back on and say, all right. But man, don't let that stop you from praying. And what if we were a church that leaned into this? What if we all got this? Like, think about that. Like, number one, how your life could transform if you really bought into this and God moved in these ways through your prayers. Your life could be different. And then what could be different about us together if our church came together and really believed that this is one of the ways God set up the world to work? What if an army invaded the country and they saw us without tanks or rocket launchers, but they saw how we prayed and they said, kill them first? I know I'm supposed to be encouraging you to pray, but wait. But if they realize that's the level. Like actually, it's not the tanks and the rockets we're afraid of, it's the prayers of God's people that we're afraid of because they move things. And that's the level I want to be at. I want to believe as much as Ethelfrith did, even though he didn't believe at all. To say, no, kill them first. That's how powerful this is. Because this is an invitation from God to create the future. Stand up with me. Let's do it. Lord, thank you for this invitation. Forgive us for not taking you up on it. Forgive us for taking it so lightly that you invite us into this. Lord, I pray for the person who has been struggling with prayer lately, that you would just light their heart on fire right now. Lord, give us a hunger to pray. Help us to see how amazing. And Lord, I want FOMO all over the room when it comes to prayer. And Lord, I pray for this church, that we would be a place that prays, Lord, a place that believes that that's one of the ways you move. And Lord, I want to pray right now for stuff, Lord. I pray that you would make this place a place that's a church for people who don't think church is for them, that this would be a place where somebody walks in with anxiety and there's just peace just comes over them. Lord, I pray that your presence would be powerful here. I pray for the person that walks in that doesn't know you, Lord, that you would just bring clarity to their mind, open their eyes up, soften their hearts up to be able to see you. I pray that you would draw people here. I pray for the city, Lord. You put us here in this place, in this time for a reason, Lord. I pray that we would be that church on that mission to see that happen. I pray for everybody in this room right now and listening and watching online, Lord. I pray that we would lean into that. Anyone who calls Mosaic home, Lord, that we would lean into that. That we get to be a part of what you're doing. That we would create a better future with you. That we would take our role as little kings and little queens seriously. Thank you for this, Lord. It is precious. In Jesus' name I pray.